Okay, game 12, 119 moves. There's no way I'm going to explain each move, especially since it seemed like a big staring contest, a large section of this game. One film comes to mind, Dustin Hoffman in The Marathon Man. The question, is it safe, is put to him in a rather aggressive manner. If you don't like dentists, I suggest you never watch The Marathon Man. Okay, so this is it safe question. Is there a risk of 0 or is it 0.0001? Which might as well be the difference between 0 and 1 in terms of risk, in terms of blockading, say, a pawn and not blockading a pawn, as we've seen in the previous game. But here, you know, is there a strategic risk of other breakthroughs in the position, you know, of pawn breaks which are latent in the position? Is there going to be an opportunity for those pawn breaks to be used at the right critical moment, even after a long staring contest, such as is witnessed in this game? The game demonstrates for me also Nimzovich, like reincarnated in engine form, with overprotection of e5. If you remember the Nimzovich gambit against the French defence, he gives up a pawn in the French defence, his d pawn, whole pawn, just to overprotect e5. We see that in this game. So it's part of this safety prophylaxis strategy White uses, while still retaining the risk of effective pawn breaks. So let's go and have a look now at this game. e4 by Houdini, c6. So we have d4, d5, and now e5. So imagine this was a French defence. But now, you know, black's getting the bishop outside of the pawn chain. So this position, it hasn't been too popular, but Nigel Short increased the popularity because he was not playing bishop d3 like in the classic game where Nimzovich got crushed by Capablanca playing black. Instead, the Nigel Short variation is with bishop e2. And here we do see the bishop e2 instead. Don't want to trade off the light square bishop defender. You've got a potential overprotection strategy on e5, but what about this idea of just sacking the d pawn? That was one of Nimzovich's gambits which wasn't taken up too much in popularity. I think one of the main reasons, you know, an early f6 from black to undermine the chain was found as an effective solution. But here black's throwing away the ideas of f6, or not able to use them in this game anyway. So we get the classic French defence undermining of d4, and it's answered not by c3 here, believe it or not, but just by the move knight c3. So what is White up to? Does White understand pawn chains? Is White actually going to give up the d pawn in a kind of respect to Nimzovich's gambit against the French defence? But here, you know, the black bishop outside of the pawn chain, doesn't black stand a better chance with that bishop there rather than here? Okay, knight ec6, putting more pressure on d4, and now we see bishop g5 attacking the queen. Queen goes to a5. Right. So against this, Houdini just decides to play a3. So now there might be an actual threat of dc and b4, just kicking the queen and maybe even forking some pieces. So black decides to take on d4, and we see here an echo of Nimzovich's French defence gambit, because after takes there isn't queen takes d4 here. Houdini just goes temporarily a pawn down. Let's have a quick look at queen takes d4. So queen takes d4, I think there's a big problem with it, I suspect. Knight c6, just hitting queen and e5. So here, it's not so clear as knight e5, is it? b4 here, but black has other moves here. d4, a6, h6 all give black a good position. So in this position, actually, knight b5 was chosen. And you might think, well, you know, White's going to get back that pawn. Surely this isn't going to be played as a Nimzovich style gambit, is it? Well, first h6, now b4, which encourages black to put more pressure on d4. And now the question is, you know, is black really going to try and defend d4? Well, he does, and then further attack as if white's going to munch on d4. Now we see an ingenious tactical move I don't think many human players would have considered here from black, which essentially I think holds on to the pawn on d4. Bishop g4 is played, so decoying the bishop away from the protection of the knight. So if bishop takes g4, queen takes b5. Well, that's the game continuation, where white's content not to win the d4 pawn back. So if knight takes d4, is that a disaster then? I guess it is tactically a disaster. Or is it? Bishop takes e2, knight takes e2. White didn't like this. Even though it restores material, black does stand better, and a4 shows that b4 is a bit of a target. So black looks to be okay here, although c4 looks a bit scary. Let's not get too far into this mire of complications. Let's suffice to say we're going to agree, we're going to have to agree that black's better in here, in this position. So instead we echo the full blast of the Nimzovich concept, overprotection, the gambit of a d4 pawn, because in this position bishop takes g4 was played. Nimzovich would be proud. So what's white's goal here? Overprotection of e5. Never mind being a pawn down, that's just you know, casualty. f4. Overprotecting e5. What's the point in overprotecting e5? Well, I think Nimzovich saw overprotection as a kind of prophylaxis, making the position safe. Very, very safe. And the point of that then is, if your position is fundamentally safe, it might facilitate pawn breaks. There's two main pawn breaks for white in this position. c3 and f5. Bear that in mind. So we're going to overprotect e5 to keep our cards, which are our pawn breaks here, in mind, and at the right opportunity inflict them on the opponent. So g6 as though there's restraints on f5. Bishop e2. Now king h1. Now here, okay, I think this is the start of the staring contest at move 19. Okay, because it looks as though both sides are not going to do much. Black's not going to play a5, because then b5, and if knight a7, then maybe a4. I'll just check that assumption before going on. That's one assumption I want to check. Okay, that a5 is not on the cards for black. b5, and then I think a4 would be an advantage to white. Actually, no, bishop takes d4, even simpler. Just bishop d4 is a good move. I think a4 is okay for black, but bishop d4, and then maybe this knight's not too healthy there. So if black doesn't want to play a5, I just want to prove this is a staring contest now, that both sides are going to be shuffling now for a long while. But this looks as though it's a bit dangerous, rook h3, but black's not going to castle here. He's going to wait around saying, what's up? White's going to say, what's up? So we're going to have a big staring contest, and it starts now. And I'm just going to play through the moves. Just playing through the moves, playing through the moves. But I want to state that white has the advanced pawn on e5. Okay, I know this is an engine versus engine game, and it's a bit silly to talk about overprotection, but white has that potential for overprotection here of e5, and also two potential breaks. Those are the two key things I want to draw attention to in this game. Staring contest continues, and continues, and continues, and continues. Stare, stare, stare. So I don't know if there's going to be a 50 move rule bug creeping in to one side. Hopefully that was resolved in this version of Rybka, where it's not going to sort of do something too radical just to avoid a 50 move repetition. So we're now on move 62. Staring contest continues. Staring contest. But we're going to get a Nimzovich injection soon with overprotection. And I'm going to be excited to demonstrate that to you. So, okay, doubling up rooks. You can tell this is an engine game now. I think there's enough evidence that it goes on and on. Both sides never tiring. As long as the electricity's on, the staring contest could continue, seemingly forever and ever. Okay. Okay, now we're at move 95. Maybe if the computers haven't been set up properly, or there's leaks in the software, you can imagine memory leaks, then that would spell danger for one side not being able to calculate as quickly. If there was like some sort of leak going on, that the longer the game, that some issue. If there is any issue, it's going to be amplified because it's now 96 moves. We're at move 96, but I'm taking you to a critical moment. Bishop G1. Take note, overprotection. Behold the overprotection of E5. Possibility for a bit. C3, bang, bang, C3. Okay, move 99. What's happened here? On move 100, C3 was played. The break was finally used in this particular configuration of the black pieces. Why was C3 used here and not at any other time? I have no idea. Is it to do with the availability of the C file? The rook stuck on H5, it can't get back as quickly to contest the C file. I guess it is intuitively. That C3 is okay here, but it's really potentially going down a full pawn. Whilst before these pawns were doubled, you wouldn't have thought that's such a major issue if black cannot use that extra pawn, but now it looks like visually a full pawn is being invested into something, an unknown something here. So C3, the pawns are undoubled, and sometimes you'd want to do that to get access to otherwise inexploitable weaknesses. You'd want to sometimes repair opponents' seemingly ugly things to get hold of really exploitable weaknesses. So what is the really exploitable weakness here about the black position which white wants to get hold of? I believe it's to do with the king again. It's to do with F5. But first for F5, overprotection is definitely needed here to support E5. Otherwise there's too much pressure on E5 from black. Too much counterplay on E5. Actually, you have black overprotecting E5 at the moment with three of the pieces. So D takes C3. We have a radical change here at move 100. So black scrambles to do something on the C file, gets the other rook ready to contest the C file maybe. Bishop B6. Interesting move. Bishop B6. I don't know. I don't know. The bishop is a bit directionless at the moment, but it's coming back, I assure you, to overprotect E5 very soon. Okay, King H1 making way for the overprotection of E5. Bang! Overprotection of E5, and it happened immediately after black played D4, as though it's going to use that extra pawn in some way. Maybe, the D5 square, maybe a knight's going to go to D5, maybe a queen's going to go to D5, but bang, here we have the overprotection. Behold the overprotection, the security increase in white's position, the off switch being turned off to black's potential counterplay, the risk shut down from 0.0001 to 0. This is what Nimzovich was talking about with prophylaxis. Overprotection is just one example of prophylaxis. With this prophylaxis, you might think, big deal. It is a big deal because F5 is a major strategic break here to break down black's king. It has a real practical implication here to safeguard E5. Okay, so black strikes with A5. And it looks as though there's a big evaluation explosion here, when before it was peaceful, now it's white advantage. In this position, it was my Rybka is looking at minus 0.24, with moves like queen d5, king h8, queen b7. But this is on low hardware, low depth, 11. And obviously this other one decided a5, but now white's better. Takes on a5. If knight a5, that's decentralizing the knight for a bit, but b4 was played, and now we see a big evaluation shift for white. So the overprotection secures white's position for this powerful strategic break. Rook ef2, f5 is not played immediately, even though my rook is indicating as a useful move. First, the pressure build up behind f5. It's afforded by the overprotection of e5. Not many black pieces are on e5 here. So white has this luxury trump card now, this f5 break. It's used here, bang, f5. The evaluations can only go up and up and up for white now. Immediate threat f6, devastation, or fg, devastation. I think f6 is more clear cut. So e takes f5. The evaluation is 0.46 now. It's going to climb, because there's been a rupture in the pawn structure here. The king's safety, the king's getting exposed. Rook takes f5. It's becoming more and more pronounced now, the king's safety issue. King g8. Now, an attacking move not in my Rybka's horizon here, which is played, is rook h5. The moves on my candidate list at the moment, depth 10, well, it was other moves. It wasn't rook h5, rook 5 to f3. Why retreat the rook? A b4. Why be bothered about material? Bishop e4. Is there any point attacking the queen? But rook h5, and it immediately loves rook h5. It's like showing the way. I don't know why in this position my Rybka at depth 10 is oblivious to rook h5. Yet if I play one move in, it goes to 2.99. So what is that about? Now I go back one move, yeah, it's saying rook h5. So rook h5, is that some magical miss or something? Is there something magical about these rook moves that Rybka doesn't appreciate? These quiet killer rook moves? What is it about rook h5? What is it doing? I think we have to put a token move in here to see what it's doing. Forget the game continu. Queen e6 was the game continuation. Let's just take this pawn to see what's going on here. Just bishop takes g6. Obviously the rook is cutting off some king squares. So a basic example, okay. Let's take a more complicated example. So not the game continuation, which was queen e6. Let's take another example, queen d7, which can so attacking the queen. Okay, queen f4. That's another implication. Queen f4 here. So there's queen h6, and if the rook sack is taken, queen h6 threatening mate. How does black defend? If that's the defensive move, then there's bishop c4 check, and black would have to give up the queen here because rook f7, not queen g6. Well, even stronger apparently is e6 with a mate, forced mate in 7 here, a forced mate in 7. So rook h7 has to give up the queen. Queen takes c6. And this bishop's coming in decisively on the diagonal, probably. So anyway, well, it must be like this. So bishop f8, queen takes f8, mate. So we see that there's some power to this rook h5, but you know, we humans knew about overprotection. We knew about prophylaxis. We knew about pawn breaks. Rybka doesn't, and it's being exposed by this other engine in seemingly a Nimzovichan fashion, backed up by concrete calculation, that the overprotection has occurred, the strategic break has been inflicted, and lo and behold, surprise, surprise, there's some surprising rook moves which cause mass devastation to the black king safety. So it happens to be rook h5. Okay, so queen e6. And now bishop f5, it's looking really, really pronounced danger for the black king. In the game, I think I want to return to this critical position after rook h5, but let's just look at the game continuation, which is not much to continue. Knight takes, bishop takes was played, and after queen takes, it resigned. Rybka resigned here. The main critical line, as you'd expect here, is bishop takes g6, and then okay, there's a few defences. Let's explore these. There's queen g7 or fg. Let's rule out fg. Queen g6 is strong, but there is even stronger apparently. No, queen g6. Let's go with that. Check, and there's a little decoy here with rook h8 check to win the queen. And this is hopeless for black, this position. Even though it's rook and bishop, there's not enough time, I think, to coordinate anything. And in fact, immediately the bishop's dropping off. Because if rook d7, queen e8, if bishop g5, queen h5 check, so the bishop's immediately dropping off. So that's no good. Okay, and in this situation, queen g7 is probably not good. Check. Here, bishop d3 check, and in this position, the strongest move actually is another quiet little rook move, rook f4. So the queen can't be taken to rook g4 mate. Okay, so what's going on here? Say f5, there'll be check, takes, and this nasty pin on the rook. Is losing an entire rook. Queen g4, rook takes g4 check, followed by taking a rook. Right, what will be a rook up? So that's no good either. This position. After rook f4 here. All right, let's put in another defensive try. Rook d6. Queen takes. Check. Check. That's winning a bishop. Rook takes. It's winning actually the bishop tactically. So fascinating stuff. There's no time for this pawn. So let's go back. So bishop f5 appears to be crushing here. And if we go back even further, was there a defense here after rook h5? Looks like some terrible moves are being suggested. If king g7, let's try and defend the king. There's rook f6. Okay, let's try knight takes e5 here. There's bishop takes e5, and look, I mean the rook's on the queen anyway. It's horrendous to lose the queen. Just win the queen here, or even queen f4, even more clinical. But winning the queen will do. Okay, so you guys need to read Nimzowitsch. Everyone needs to read Nimzowitsch again. Nimzowitsch had some points which seem to be in this engine game, believe it or not, about overprotection, prophylaxis, breakthroughs, undermining pawn chains, strategic breaks, general safety, complete safety. I'm not talking about if-then based safety, if-then moves. We're talking about true safety of position. So I think this pawn sacrifice is reminiscent of the Nimzo's French defense gambit, which, as a reminder, if you haven't seen my Nimzo series, it went a bit like this: knight f3, and it just taking, and there was this amusing fictional annotated game about this, but the point was to overprotect e5 to later get a king attack. So this isn't fiction, this isn't April Fool's joke, this seems to be a real engine making use of Nimzowitsch ideas of overprotecting e5, sacking a pawn in the centre, and then later getting a vicious attack. No joke. I hope it's not a big joke, because it's fascinating stuff. Okay, we do get this boring bit in this game where seemingly nothing happened, but then somehow the overprotection and the pawn break c3 was first used. So c3 at about move 100. If we go fast forward here, get to move 100, juicy bit, where c3 is played, change of pawn structure, bang, c3 at move 100. Then this is subsequently followed by an overprotection of e5 after a bit more manoeuvring. Overprotection, critical moment, move 112. Okay, so move 112, the overprotection occurs, and now an even more critical moment, 115, f5, dangerous break, f5. By the way, let's just quickly look at knight takes e5. Quick question, knight takes e5 here. I guess it takes and then f6, is it, or is it f6 immediately? Either is strong, either f6 or bishop e5. So f6, curiously, because the queen's attacked. Bishop takes e5 here. And then there's bang, rook takes f7. You see, once that strategic breaks occur, there's lots and lots of tactical opportunities. Either rook f7 is a mating free, or queen h5 is a mating free in this position. Okay, so that answers that question. Let's just tie up some loose ends here. f5 seems devastating. Nimzovich will be proud. That's all I can say. Nimzovich will be proud of this game. This is it, all over for the black king. It's all over. Bishop takes g5, smashes down the black's king defences. The opposite coloured bishops tend to favour the attacking player because it's access to light squares, which black can't as easily defend because it's got the dark square bishop defender. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. The resignation, I think, occurred after queen e5. Comments or questions on YouTube? Thanks very much.